right? So these warehouses, I'm telling you, this isn't mom and pop warehouse, right? This is corporations. And if I was to say the names, you would know who they are, right? Because these are massive corporations who are profiting off of illegal labor. They're profiting off of paying them all minimum wage. That's what they do. They pay them minimum wage, and they pay a third party because they don't want them as employees, right? So they're all contractors, right? So this is all technicalities. It's all systematic. Everyone makes money. The corporations make the most money they possibly can, right? They avoid employee tax. They avoid all these things, right? And they take advantage of it.
You've probably heard how terrible illegal immigration is, from Chicago Flips Red and Jessica Jackson, down to being in LA and in some cases, not being able to get a job if you're not bilingual. And today, we're going to react to a video that might open your eyes and shed some more light on just how bad the illegal immigration problem actually is.
New Jersey is highly affected by illegal immigration. I've lived in New Jersey for about 20 years or so. And I've seen how neighborhoods have transformed, like places like Elizabeth. Elizabeth used to be lower middle class to middle class, kind of working class area. It was mostly Black and Hispanic. When I was in high school, it was Black and Hispanic. You go through there now, I don't see any Black people. There's no Black. It's hard to find. There are pockets of towns where it's just all Hispanic. That's it. It's all Hispanic, whether they're from Dominican Republic, Puerto Rican, El Salvador, wherever. It's just pockets of Hispanics who live in these particular areas, which on its face, I don't have a problem with it. But here's the other part. I know for a fact that much of this is fueled by illegal immigration. I used to work for a company that was associated with many of the warehouses throughout the state of New Jersey. That's another thing. As the transformation happened in these towns, also all these warehouses were popping up all over New Jersey. And it's not like, oh, it's just this one remote area. Down the street from where I live in a decent area, down the street, multiple warehouses. I know for a fact because I've been in some of those warehouses. It's all illegal labor. All of them. They all speak Spanish. They all need an interpretation, right? It's all legal labor. And I've seen how the operation works. They get on, in many cases, they would get rides, right? Brought to the warehouses. They're seen as day workers, right? They're not employees. They do the same operation all the time. No one was ever worried about ICE. Ever worried about ICE. And then you find out that E-Verify, right? We thought, oh, just E-Verify, they'll stop this entire thing. Well, in many places, they have the choice to use E-Verify. Do you think they're going to choose to use E-Verify if they can get cheap labor and pay them minimum wage and just rotate through the next illegal immigrant who comes through wherever? Of course not. So most clients don't use E-Verify. Like, this is the reality happening all throughout New Jersey. There's a place called...
See, this is where I feel a little vindicated, because you heard for decades that Black people are just lazy. What it really was they're bringing in these people who are willing to work under the table for way lower wages, who are willing to work in inhumane conditions, and the Black Americans saying, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to work unless you're going to pay me fair wages, and I'm not going to work unless you're going to put me in humane conditions. And if you think it hasn't been going on for decades, check out this news clip.
And one of the, I won't even say it's an unintended consequence. One of the consequences of the illegal immigration is that we have stopped investing in human capital. And we've stopped trying to raise the standard of living of American workers and the working conditions. I have a friend that has done some research on just working conditions in many factories and plants. And there are factories in the U.S. where people urinate on themselves because they're not allowed to leave the production line to go to the restroom. And, those are not conditions that many Americans will put up with. But employers have gotten to the point that, they have some labor that's willing, to take inhumane conditions. And so they're exploiting that labor. And what bothers me is that there are just so many people out there that they are pro-illegal immigration. They're on the side of the downtrodden, but they look the other way when it comes to inhumane working conditions and very problematic. And I can say that I'm a proponent of class-based affirmative action based on need. If you look at the Civil Rights Movement, Civil Rights Act of 1964, and all of the legislation, the bills that were passed, immediately it was opened up to people from all different countries. It diluted the impact it could have had for African Americans. And so, blacks have had to sacrifice a lot. Every time, that they almost get themselves to a certain level, another group comes in and they get displaced. And blacks are the ones that are hardest hit by what we're doing now. We're always at the bottom. And for the foreseeable future, it seems like we will be, because whenever our politicians or our so-called black leaders, our black elites get in position, but these people, and I mean, I don't know how they sleep at night. How can they sleep at night knowing, that they have been, I use the expression blessed to achieve a certain stature, and all they care about is themselves and people of that social class, and they're not looking after, they're not being responsible. It's all about them. I found that very problematic. I don't know how they sleep at night.
Dover in New Jersey, and you're like traveling all the way up these highways to get there. It's pretty remote.
Yeah.
It looks like Old Town USA, where you're like going through all these scenic routes. You get to Dover, huge Hispanic population. You're like, where do all these Hispanic people come from? And it's like that all over New Jersey. And so people understand I'm not exaggerating. New Jersey has the highest Hispanic population outside of a border state.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I guess it makes sense in a lot of ways in that New Jersey is sort of adjacent to two big city centers, Philly in the south and New York on the north. And so it's kind of the more affordable, adjacent place to live to those two places, both of which are dense and expensive.
Yeah.
I think Philly's less expensive than New York.
We have high minimum wage. We were, especially when I was dealing with that employer, we were incrementally going up to, I think it was $16 an hour, right? Which is a lot more than if you were to go to Pennsylvania. I think Pennsylvania minimum wage is like $9, right? So New Jersey was the place to be, right? It's more affordable than New York. And there's a whole operation happening, warehouses everywhere. And it's not just like Amazon or anything like that. It's other fashion brands. It's all of these food companies, food processing. There are warehouses all over New Jersey, but everyone turns a blind eye. And then they tell us, well, Americans don't want to do those jobs, which is nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. The reality is how they get these illegal laborers is they cater to it, right? It's a whole operation of catering to illegal labor. So they're not trying to cater to Americans whatsoever.
See, it's starting to become a bigger issue now because it's seeping into the YT communities. So now everybody is starting to feel hurt by what's going on. And this is what keeps happening to America. Racism is costing you. Any of my YT people, if you're watching this, listen to what I'm saying. Racism keeps costing you. Because as long as it's affecting the black community, everybody's turning a blind eye to it. As soon as it starts affecting other communities, now it becomes an issue. But here's the thing. If you would have nipped it in the bud right when it was happening to us, it wouldn't be happening to you. You should have just stopped it right there and said, you know what? You can't do it to the people, to the American citizens, these black American citizens whose family built this country. We've got to stop this now. But instead, you let it keep going. And then it starts to affect you now. And now you want to stop it. But the train is already rolling down the tracks.
Yeah, that's a really, this is one of the things that has, it's so hard as an American, as a person today. You go on to screens.
Yeah.
And you get this flood of news, and there can be such a giant disconnect between what you're reading and then like what you actually have any real physical experience looking at, seeing firsthand. Like what you're describing takes boots on the ground knowledge. I mean, to say, oh yeah, no, there's that fact. There's a warehouse. This is happening all throughout my state, all throughout my region.
The entire state. I wish I was joking when I'm telling people.
Like nobody's talking about that. I mean, people
Right.
are talking about like the generic sense of illegal immigration's impact on working people, and like, I mean, it makes sense because how would Trump win on this, with this being the number one issue of concern,
Right.
if there wasn't millions and millions of people who were feeling it firsthand in their own lives? Sure, you can get propagandized by the news, but at the end of the day, you still have like what you're seeing down the street
Right.
in playing into how you think about what's going on in the world, right or wrong.
Yeah. Most
Yeah. If you think about it, Trump should be losing in a landslide. He's such a terrible president that the fact that he's not getting washed right now is a sign that there are some issues happening in America that he's touching on that people are really feeling in their real lives. And one of the things we're really feeling in our real lives is when you go outside, it looks like a third world country. And as an American, we've got to be honest about that. And he is for however bad he is trying to clean up that issue. And that's important to us because other than that, he should be getting washed.
people don't watch Fox News, right? So like at some
I think
point,
it's something like it's only like 20 to 30% of the population. This might have gone up in recent years since politics has basically infected everything. But I remember seeing some studies that were like only 20 to 30% of the population consumes political media.
Yeah.
That's probably still roughly true.
yeah, I wouldn't.
Outside of an election year, let's say, like
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. So they're not getting everything based off of what the TV tells them, right? They're reacting to what's going on. If your job is up and leaving because it's going to another country, that affects you, right? Or if your cousin lost his job because they're doing something else, or they started using illegal labor, right? They went to another state where it's just much more relaxed when it comes to using illegal labor, right? These are real things that are happening. And so when I'm talking about illegal labor, I've seen it all throughout the state, all the way from Trenton, all the way to places like Union City. Like it's rampant, and it's not just. I think what people have to understand is that illegal immigration isn't just, oh well, Juan came across the border, he's just looking for an opportunity. It's like it's an entire system. It's an entire system that's at play.
Starting supply chain.
It's a supply chain, right? And it's a supply chain also of human suffering as well. Starting from the people who are trying to cross the border, people being exploited, kidnapped, children and women being sold into slavery, right? And then you have the people who make it across the border. And guess what? They say, oh, you made it here, but you need to actually pay us $10,000 more, or else we'll kill your family. Right? This is the real life that a lot of these people are making through before they even get into a warehouse, before they make a food truck. They do all these different things. So you have that part of the system. Then you have the corporate side, right? So these warehouses, I'm telling you, this isn't mom and pop warehouse, right? This is corporations. And if I was to say the names, you would know who they are, right? Because these are massive corporations who are profiting off of illegal labor. They're profiting off of paying them all minimum wage. That's what they do. They pay them minimum wage, and they pay a third party because they don't want them as employees, right? So they're all contractors, right? So this is all technicalities. It's all systematic. Everyone makes money. The corporations make the most money they possibly can, right? They avoid employee tax. They avoid all these things, right? And they take advantage of it. And then you have, you think to yourself, how exactly, even if that's all true, how exactly do you take someone who just crossed the border and put him in a warehouse? Don't they have to show identification? Well, I think it's about 80% of illegals use fake identification. Like they use fake social security cards. Like fraud is rampant, right?
Yeah, and I think somebody on one of my videos I made yesterday said, well, how can they vote if they don't have ID? Come on, man. If they want to vote, they're going to figure out a way to show ID. If they're over here, they have to have some kind of identification just to get around. So, of course, they're going to be able to commit fraud. They're going to be able to get some kind of identification, and they're going to be able to vote.
Because why would they care? They're there.
Well, how else are you going to get to? You need something, and you're here without
Right.
legitimate documentation. So you got to You're necessarily going to have illegitimate documentation.
Exactly. So and people have to understand, one crime begets another crime, and everything becomes plausible. And a system, it's becoming a system that breaks down. So if that person says, well, I'm here illegally, so screw it, I'm going to get behind the car and drive, and I hit somebody, well, guess what? I'm going to take off, and you have to deal with it. Your insurance premiums go up.
Well, plus, to that end, you can't get insured because the second you have to engage an insurance company, which are high risk, highly regulated industries, you're going to need to show legit all the things. Like, you can't get it. You can't get normal and car insurance if you don't have a real legal driver's license.
Right. And so I've talked to people who have had that happen to them, where they got into a car accident with a legal immigrant. And even if the cops got them there, well, they're in this place where they're not going to deport them. The police aren't going to work with ICE. And so the guy just gets off scot-free, and the cops are like, good luck suing him. That's basically it. So you're the one who's left footing the bill and having your insurance premiums go up for what they did because they can't go after him. He doesn't have insurance. Like, you just have an entire system that the only way it sustains itself is by law and order, right? If you break the law, you get some sort of punishment. And especially during the Biden years, what we saw was that laws are just suggestions if you're not from here, right? Now, for you and me, I can get a ticket, I can be arrested, all these things. But if you're not from here, the ultimate leniency, right? Even if they catch you in the act committing a violent crime, you'll get released back out into the streets.
Why do you think, I mean, it's such a hard time to keep track of the news because things are changing every week. But, you know, one thing that has absolutely happened is that the notion that, well, there's nothing that the Biden administration can do unless Congress passes a new law. Like, it was instant that it was like, oh, no, that's not true. Like, in fact, it turns out we've run the natural experiment, and simply having an administration that's welcoming of illegal immigration versus not,
right,
accounts for like literally 95% of illegal border crossings. Like, the second Trump comes in, just because people have cell phones, global communication is instantaneous. So everyone that was on that migrant trail is like, all right, I'm not gonna cross the Darien Gap to get turned away the second I show up.
Right.
I'm not going. Why do you think the Democratic Party didn't see this coming? Like it's weird. It's actually,
from my perspective, it's exactly what I said in my last video. They're looking for a new voter base because the Black American is starting to peel off, not only to the Republican Party, but also you got the section of us who's saying we're not going to vote unless we get tangibles. So they're saying the ones that peeled off, we're not getting them back. The ones that want the tangibles, we're not going to give them anything. So what do we have to do? We need to bring these illegals over here so we can get a new voter base.
weird.
They've become elitists, not become, they've embraced being elitists. They brag about their elitism. They become unreliable and they're unrelatable. You know, someone like Kamala Harris, for example, she's the type of person where you have to say, like, the crowd wants you to be relatable. Okay, how do I be relatable? And she wants to go and study being relatable. Like, it's just what you are. It's just what you possess, right? And this is part of like the bigger issue when it comes to Democratic Party, is that it is party first, is people second. You know, what do the people actually care about? Well, that's not happening. They just dismiss everything that's going on. And if you say, hey, we should care about our border, you know, like the Democrats did 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, there's all the footage of Hillary and Obama and everybody. I mean, if this was a kind of, which is even weirder in a certain sense in that Trump came in 2016 with this as the primary concern.
Mm-hmm.
And that almost instantly flipped it. Like, well, we can't be saying the same thing. So Hillary, who in 2008 sounded like Trump on immigration, well, suddenly couldn't sound like him anymore. Like, I wonder how much of it was like just being in reaction to Trump, that now we have to be the opposite of Trump just because we have to be, as opposed to being like, well, actually, we agree on this.
Yeah.
Like, why is that so hard? And I'm actually like relatively dovish on immigration in general. So, in that sense, I think I wish we actually just had a more sane legal path that wasn't so difficult for people who want to come here and be legitimate. And I think that's at least part of the problem, is that we do have kind of like almost prohibitionism, where it's so hard to get in legally that just like prohibition of alcohol gave rise to Al Capone, prohibition of a legal path gives rise to illegal.
I'm not sure if I agree with that. The reason why is because the United States has the highest immigration of any country throughout the world. So
Yeah.
it's not like we're not letting people in. We let people in all the time. And I understand, even with that being said, that it's not easy, but nothing worthwhile is easy.
Fair enough.
What we saw was that the southern border became profitable, right? So it became profitable for the cartels, but also became profitable for big corporations. And so part of the reason why the Democrats are all for it, I was in disbelief when I learned that Joe Biden really did fly people into the country. Because they were like, it's overwhelming the border, we'll just fly you in instead. How about that? I was like, that can't be true, right?
The cost of these programs is so astounding.
Yeah. America's broke. Like, we don't want to say that because we're the richest nation in the world, and we like to have this to brag about that. But America is broke. It is essentially the neighbor that you have with 2 Mercedes in the car and a massive house, and he has $1.5 million of debt, but he makes $150,000 a year. Like, brother, you're broke. I don't know how you're going to pull this one off. You're broke. In any other person's life, you give charity when you're capable of doing that. America's broke. I've sat on that position now officially. America is broke. Sorry, rest of the world, we can't help you.
Wow. That's very eye-opening and very interesting. This immigration thing is something I've been looking into heavily recently. If you guys want me to do more of this topic, if you guys want me to talk more about this, react to more videos about this, let me know in the comments. Y'all, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I'm out.